progress.
Now, that one was hard because your audio cut out at the beginning, but based on where you ended, just a little bit early.
Okay.
But I feel like this is what happens when you're the man with a button, you know?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I feel like maybe that lagged a little bit that time, whereas the last time there was no lag whatsoever.
I think it's because if you have to multitask, you can't really give yourself to the entire performance.
Yeah, you're definitely concentrating a lot more. I'm sorry that I keep sitting on this side.
This is why I need like a stagehand to come in and take care of the technical stuff.
You've got 2 cats.
I know. Come on, Sophie.
They have what, 8?
They have 8 feet between them. That's absolutely right. And they have digits even. So
bloody lazy.
Yeah.
Where even are they?
40 digits between them.
That's too many. That's more digits than you even need.
It's way more. They only need 1.
That's right. Oh, look how terrifying look at my skin.
Look at the detail. The dermatological fineness.
Why is that so like high res? Oh.
Apple products.
Oh, I can't.
Apple products.
I'm so self-conscious about my my hand lines. My hand line grooves.
You look beautiful. Come on. All right, so
what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
When you two start off, I'm never quite sure when to interrupt your flow, but like, yeah. So this week was my choice.
Famous podcasters, Karen.
Yeah. You both do such a great job. I wonder how you get anything done. So yeah, this week for our November special of things that scared us as children, it is my week, and mine is an obscure one. Mine is a 1982 animated film called The Flight of Dragons, which I watched a lot with my brother when I was a kid. I don't know when I first watched it, but I must have been really small. I remember I wrote and fully illustrated a book about a wizard and dragons when I was about 8.
Can we get a copy of this? Does it exist at parents' house?
No, maybe my parents still have it. So it was about a wizard called Ladrikin. And I definitely wrote it when I was 8 because my childminder at the time, for my 9th birthday, made me, so she was an artist and beautiful, beautiful creation stuff. So she made me a Swiss roll cake where she created the wizard around it and had a little flag that said happy 9th birthday.
What's the relationship between the wizard and the Swiss roll cake?
Oh, because that was a good body shape. That was all.
Oh, so you mean his body was a Swiss roll?
His body was a Swiss roll. Sorry, I should have made that clear.
Yeah, okay, I didn't understand.
So, yeah, and it was all, like malleable icing. Because I also don't like marzipan, and she knew that. She was great. And so it was malleable, like, coloured icing. So, Ladrikin the Wizard, his wee flag.
What's the etymology of Ladrikin?
I don't know.
I mean, that's because apparently etymology is very important in this relevant movie.
Well, absolutely. As an ology, its worth is held very highly by this film.
I'm going to say that I both loved this movie with all of my heart and yet also really hated this movie.
Sophie, did it tell you a lot about me?
It was not what I thought. I mean, one, you're going to have to really, as we had to get Dave to do last week, really emphasize the bits that scared you as a child, because I tried to put myself in a child body when I watched this, and it's like I couldn't work out which were those bits. But some of the line, and I was thinking about it, like, I don't, whenever I watch it and then we talk about it, I got to the point where I was like, do I need to pause this and literally start writing down lines? And then I got to the point where I was like, I would be writing down every second fucking line in this movie as oh my God, and do you remember when blah blah said this? And then I was like, this isn't practical, so I didn't write anything down, but it was glorious but fucking weird. Like,
also, so do you know what I love watching again? So I have watched it as an adult, but it was maybe about 12 years or so ago when a friend found it for me because he knew how much I loved it, and no one other than my brother has ever watched this film. But it was really funny because I think the last time I watched it was maybe just after I finished my PhD, and I was in a funny place anyway because I was exhausted. So I don't really remember it as watching it again this time. it's so verbose, it's so like the dialogue, the words in it, like, so I would say to Dave, like my parents were always like the kind of folk kids sort of slag off as go to bed reading the dictionary kind of people, because they really like language, they really like their words, and they clearly like this. So I must have, you know, I've been watching this from like 5, 6, 7, I don't like, very small anyway. I've been watching this film, and there are definitely bits in it that I would not have understood as a small child. Like, absolutely not. I mean, it's so language orientated, and I think that's one of the criticisms that comes from this film when you look at it, is people are not, they don't like the animation, they don't think it's done as well as it could be, but the voice acting is so good.
The 80s animation. It was like,
I love the 80s animation.
I was like, this takes me back. Like, I have not seen a cartoon that looks like this for so long. I thought it was, you know, and like we've got like first scene where a swan and some fairies get crushed by a mill, and I was like,
I'm telling you, you're not scared by that, Sophie. You're not scared by that.
You know what's really interesting? When that happened, I was like, as it, you know, because I was, as I said, I tried to put myself in that headspace. As a child, that would have upset me. I don't think it would have scared me, but I would have been quite upset, because it's like literally, they're just like preamble, and now we got dead fairies on a swan who goes like, fuck, it's not my responsibility anymore. Later days is, but then like they get, you know, they come back to life, so it's fine. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things that would have like perturbed me as a child, but possibly not scared me. But just one of the most batshit crazy movies I have ever seen. You know, it's like, I love this, like, it's the quest for like magic versus logic. Like, it's just the weirdest thing. And then like, I don't want to ruin it for everyone watching at home, us, but like fucking wins by just saying science thing.
Yes.
I just couldn't, like, it was fucking, of all the movies we have watched so far for this entire endeavor, that's like definitely the most fucking weird thing I've ever seen.
Which is also, I think, why I really wanted you to watch it, because Dave, this is Dave's second time, but the first time he wasn't really watching it. So when I got given it when I was like, I don't know, 24, 25, I was watching it one day in the lounge while Dave was writing his thesis in the corner. So he wasn't really paying attention, but he was there. And at that bit, like, which we will get to, where you're just like mouthing off astronomy, geography, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, first it's like scientific theorems, and then it's just the name of scientific disciplines. Like,
it makes sense. It makes sense in the film. But we'll get to
that. Like, it doesn't not make sense.
But look, so when we decided we were going to watch this, I just put on even the trailer on YouTube, and it brought me so much joy, just because the music is also just...
The music! Flight of Dragons, like the thing. Oh,
Don McLean, ladies and gentlemen.
Are you kidding?
No.
It's Don McLean, yeah. Yep.
That was the other thing as well. I was like, what a voice cast.
Oh
like,
my God, yes.
Because it's like, I watched like when, you know, it all starts up, and I was like, I know all these old names and it's like a real, I mean, except for like James L. Jones, who like I know in a contemporary way. Yeah. And also, what's his face? The guy who did Peter.
John Ritter.
Yeah, Ritter. Like, I'm like, it's like old school comedian, like it was just, or like not even comedian, just like old school actor. I was like, these are
like old actor people.
Yeah, like, yeah. I was like, how do they get everyone to do it? Was just weird, Karen. Anyway, shall we start with our chronology of the movie about the science ruining the magical world?
Yep, science versus magic. So opening scene, Flight of Dragons. We have dragons flying. We have the song. We have Coriolanus, who is very important. Coriolanus, the green wizard, the wizard of the earth.
Yeah.
And he's calling.
He has two names, both Carol and Linus.
Yeah.
Stuck together, Carolinus.
And you know, Sophie, I realized as well, so like we again have gone back to Wikipedia with something I've seen a gazillion times, because these names are not memorable names apart from Peter Dickinson.
As I said, you know, I watched the last bit online and that had subtitles, and I was like, that's the word they've been saying this whole fucking like movie. It was, yeah, they're not memorable, and they're also just a bunch of sounds.
So I did remember the dragons' names, because the dragons, as a small child, were my favorite. Continue to be my favorite. Gorbash, I quite enjoy the fact, so spoilers for what's coming ahead, but I enjoy the fact, I never really liked Gorbash's voice.
Gorbash's voice is infuriating when Gorbash is Gorbash. Yeah.
So we've got Gorbash, the green dragon, who is Coriolanus's dragon, but he also has an older dragon whose name
Isn't Gorbash like Carolinus's daughter? Wasn't that what happened in the story?
Yeah.
Dragon, not daughter.
But ultimately, it's the house dragon that gets people from A to B. So it's Coriolanus.
Just like in Harry Potter, when like one of the owls got old, and then they had the new owl that used to do it and stuff.
Yeah.
So we open with them and a little bit of an intro about magic having a hard time, and then, as you say, we got to this scene where a weird swan. It's a weird swan. It's
a swan with like a bunch of fairies on its back. They're having like a great fucking time.
It's getting a bit distracted. It seems a bit perturbed by the fairies. They're annoying it. But it gets a bit distracted, and then suddenly it's going under one of those
water wheels.
A water wheel for like a mill or something.
And it dies. The swan dies, which is really upsetting.
Well, everything. Well, no, it doesn't. Like they come out and the swan is dead looking, but then the swan is not actually dead. And then like Carolinus is there, and like the swan has a bunch of dead fairies on its back. And then
the swan is revived by Carolinus. Carolinus brings it back to life with magic. He manages.
But then it's the bit where like the swan is like fine, and then he grabs like a handful of dead fairies, and he's like, oh no, and then the swan fucks up and like, well, I didn't mean to kill them under the thing, and then luckily like the fairies were still alive. But yeah, granted, like, but it's not what. Everything that happens in this movie is not what I thought was going to happen, but I was like, what is this movie, Karen?
Well,
I was going to send you a message almost being like, what are we in?
I was surprised I got no messages from you. I was intrigued, and I was like, I don't know what Sophie thinks of this. But again, I'll take whatever you two have to say to this. But for me, this is perfect film. Love this film.
No, as I said, like I loved it. I was so confused. So I was like, what the fuck is happening? What is going on? To the point where I was like, I hate this because I felt out of control. But like, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
So cue my first scary bit. So the swan, you're right, the swan upsets me, but my first scary bit is the people. The people are
throwing rocks at him?
Yeah. So Coriolanus calls out the people who have made the water wheel because he's really upset that technology is killing magic by, upsetting the fairies and stuff. And nature's not, it's moving too fast and it's killing nature.
Well, to be fair, nature should look where the fuck it's going.
The fairies were distracting the swan. I feel like magic was to blame for all of that. Magic was upsetting the swan. And it was
that's actually true. Like the swan is just like swanning around, as it were. Yeah. And then like swan, like what the fuck? And then turns around too late. Tries to rectify the situation in the swan's defense. Like tries to like swan backpedal. But like that's being sucked into that water. Like it's just, it tried. I agree. It's not the swan's.
Look where you're going.
So I did feel it was a bit bold of Coriolanus to call them out about having their water wheel because, well, they were just doing what they were doing. But saying that, they were so grotesque that I think Karen Lamb and her upset with people being mean. Yeah. And I feel like Coriolanus just kind of wanted to have a chat and go, can you like be a bit more careful?
He was a bit antagonistic. He didn't just say like, let's have like a productive discourse. He was a bit like, you just watch out for your science ruining magic and everything. And they're just like, who are you, green wizard? And then I do not feel like his actions warranted them throwing rocks at him.
No.
And
he tries to disappear their water wheel. And he does a bad job
with his blue.
Tries to, and it doesn't work. It kind of dribbles at the end, and it's a bit unimpressive.
It is. It's a flaccid spell.
Yeah. And that's when he realizes that magic is having a really hard time, and that all of this movement towards the logic and science, magic doesn't have a platform, but magic really needs to have a platform because magic's really like, the inspiration for humankind.
There are what was the I should have written down a bunch of the quotes that I love, but exactly. Magic is very,
it's like, for example, fairies will inspire mankind to make airplanes.
Oh my god, and I was just like, what? Because they said the dragons will inspire people to make like their like armor and whatever. I was like, dragons also fly and are far more impressive than a fairy. I was like, why are the dragons inspiring the armor, etc.?
Yeah.
fairies inspiring flight.
And then I liked, my favorite one is when they talk about like seeing other lands and seeing to the future and whatnot. And I was, in my head was like, oh, computers. I'm like, oh no, of course, no. So it's yes, it's the television and the radio, because you've got to remember Venezuela.
I loved it. I like
computers would still be pretty primitive at this time.
Oh no, I know.
Like
I know. That's why I was remembering. I was remembering when I watched this. So this film is older than me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was I do really like that. It's like, here's the fucking thing. We can't destroy magic. Magic is going to inspire man to do all these things. And it was just I buy the rest of them. I just call bullshit on the fairies and flight.
No, I agree. I thought the fairies were pricks. Like basically in my mind in this film, the fairies were killed the swan. And so I think I was upset with fairies. We're early on introduced to Melisande, who is Coriolanus's ward. He's been looking after her. A skinny, long blonde haired gal.
Real pretty.
Who's a princess or something?
Yeah, she's just a pretty cartoon character with hair.
So she's worried about him. He's also like
she's not bald.
She's definitely got hair.
And she's worried about him. He's clearly got some like pains or something.
Yeah, he's got like he's an old man wizard by these, like, it's just like he's just decaying a little bit.
So he says to Melisande, like, I'm worried about magic. I'm going to get my brothers together, the bros, the dudes, all the other wizards of this world. And we're going to talk about how we can actually essentially create a safe zone for magic. So magic to coincide with it, because he's not anti the modern world, in fact, but he feels that if magic goes away entirely, mankind no longer its inspiration. So he wants to create a little private bubble for magic to live in. So he calls them his pals.
His pals, which are like his brothers, who are Black Wizard, Asian Wizard, and James Earl Jones.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got, and I never remember their names apart from Omadon. So Omadon's the baddie. So he calls him like, and she's like, really, do you need to? So basically Melisandre's like, you've been my dad for bloody forever. And I don't know, who are these brothers you're talking about? And he's like, right. So we've got the dude that controls the oceans.
Yeah,
and he's quite a calm dude whose name escapes me, but
you know what I got from like epic vibes? I got Captain Planeteers, like we're going
for sure.
Fire, wind, water, heart, and they're all different colors of the ethnic rainbow because we're inclusive, we're pretending to be inclusive. And I was like, we now got white, brown, Asian,
and monster.
Color I'm not saying, and then monster.
It's monster. So we've got clearly like thoughtful meditation, ocean. So we get air, ocean, land, and we've got black magic. And so we're already warned about Omadon, who James Earl Jones, who steals the show in this film. Wonderful.
And they're like, what, are you sure we need James Earl Jones? And he's like, well, the ancient laws decree that we need James Earl Jones.
We all need James Earl
Jones. And basically, anytime there's anything inconvenient that needs to happen from a plot standpoint, it's been decreed by the ancient laws that needs to happen.
Antiquity, that's what they call it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like antiquity says. And it was like, okay.
All right. James Earl Jones it is.
So here's the setup for things being a disaster, because you bring in black magic. And what I love is also, so again, Sophie, you're not scared of it. You're not, because you watched Alien at 7, but like, you go to like the palaces of the various wizards and they're all lovely, and then you go with black magic and it's a big skull and you're like, right, and this is like a monstrosity thing who looks like maybe as a wrestler. So Omadon comes out with like a big red thing, but like a mask with stars on it. He looks like he should be a wrestler.
And he's got like a wee little, you're right, he does. He's like
sharp teeth, horned nose. So the four of them get together. And of course it's not cool, because Coriolanus is basically like, look, magic's having a problem, we're going to do this. And Omadon's like, the other two are like, this sounds fairly useful, let's do this.
You can have like my magical powers to help you make this land where all like the magical things can survive. But James Earl Jones is like, no fucking way, I'm going to wreak some havoc. That's going to stop all these idiots.
He's like, you're not, and again, now watching it as an adult, it's quite entertaining. He's like, no, you're not putting us in a retirement home. You're essentially putting us in
There
retirement.
was- yeah, I feel like, you know how all kids' movies these days have lines for adults? I feel like 80% of this movie was lines for adults.
I think this movie was a film my dad liked, and my brother and I watched it a lot. And you got that from like the first time watching it, going, I can see why your dad taped this off for you too.
Yeah.
So yeah, like.
So he basically says, no, I'm not gonna restrict my magic. I'm gonna use my magic to encourage mankind's worst impulses.
So they can destroy themselves.
Greed and avarice and nuclear warfare. And therefore.
Yeah, they've got a little animation of the fucking mushroom bomb, and you're just like, great for children.
My second scary part of this film.
Fair, nuclear holocaust is scary.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, child Karen is correct. Adult Karen also correct. Here's the thing about nuclear holocaust: hard pass.
Although I have to say, so in that montage of the things he's going to make the humans do, so there is the bit of like, there is the nuclear holocaust that comes towards the end. There's also the bit of bulldozing all their trees and getting rid of nature, which probably upset me a bit. But I think it was more the, you know, man fighting man. And again, anytime they're showing man at the start of this, it's quite grotesque, man, like really caricature big features. And they're like, so the first thing in that montage of how he's going to get man to destroy man is man fighting with his brother and greed and all that stuff. And I think maybe it was the injustice, I don't know, greed really bothered little Karen Lamb. So yeah, so that was my second scary moment. It was the way he was like, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to like make you kill you. That's upsetting. And then watching as an adult, I still find that upsetting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there were like some intense bits for sure. I'll give you that. I'll give both present and past Karen that.
So Omadon, James Earl Jones, goes off on his scary dragon. Everyone else has got lovely dragons. Omadon also has a scary dragon.
But I mean, that makes sense because he's the scary
The amount of times we were trying to figure out what his dragon was called, we did not know. It was just sounds.
That's what I said. Like, when I like watched the last bit of it with subtitles, I was like, these are the sounds that have been made at me this entire. And now obviously I've completely forgotten, but I was just like, that dragon in particular. I was like, oh, blah, blah.
Blah.
So he goes away, and they were like, well, that didn't go very well.
No.
And so then they have a bit of banter.
And they're like, they have some banter to the effect of, we'll wage a war to stop him. And then they can't. Why not? Antiquity says no.
Antiquity says no. Yeah, you're right. And then even what's his face?
One another. So.
Yeah. Like, I forgot his name. I want to call him Coloepus, but that's a type of
Carolinus.
Coloepus is a type of sloth. He even apologizes to Antiquity for suggesting, he's like, no, you're right, I'm really sorry. And I love this like just banter with like Antiquity. It's just, you know,
because was the sea wizard not gonna like call up all the sea creatures to try and eat him or something? And it was like the thoughtful meditative wizard was like, hey team, come on, cool it, we can't do this.
No, but the issue with that was just like, it's like I love your offer, but like we're gonna fight this on land, unfortunately. So
you're right.
Like,
oh, great idea.
So
no seals at play here or something.
So they can't have the war, so they have to get a quest. They have to inspire others to go into the thing. Yes,
that's what it was.
Well, no, because it's like, no, they couldn't. So it was like, no, that was like the violent bit. And then, Antiquity was like, no. And they're like, okay, the only way to do it is the quest. I feel like they were two separate things. Like, so there was, you can have my sea creatures. And it was like, great, let's go fuck up some people with some sea creatures. And Antiquity was like, nah. And they're like, oh, okay. So now it's I feel like there was like a lot of like slightly like Lord of the Rings vibes that I got from various parts.
There's a lot of world building that maybe we didn't need. But maybe we didn't need, because maybe this was definitely going to be the only entry in the Flight of Dragons series. Maybe. I felt like.
I don't know. There's still a chance. What year is it? There's like still a chance that we.
1982, Sophie. 82. And they were apparently they were going to do a live action in 2015 and it got canned.
But next year is 2022. What an anniversary.
Might be time to revive this franchise.
Who do we contact? We'll sort this out later. But so you're right. So then we need our quest.
And it has to have 3, a minimum of 3. And one of them can be a dragon. One of them they've already sorted because it's going to be the most English knight that ever there was.
Like, Sir Orin Neville Smythe,
who's so English to the point where he demands a cup of tea on arrival. He's so super English. And then they have to find another one, but they said like they need man. They essentially want a man as part of this quest. Although I assumed the knight was a man, but I got very confused by that. But anyway, they were going to have a man. So this is when they actually have to go and seek further guidance from antiquity as to who the man should be. Right. So he speaks to some owls. Am I making this up?
No, he does.
And he gets some owls.
Yeah, no, he does. Right? The best thing is they summon. So gets Melisande to summon some owls. A dragon appears, and I was like, I'm very confused right now. Is this a name that we're? And I was like, no, the owls are being summoned, but like we've just had some like dragons just like pop in for a chat in the meantime. But yes, it's the owls. Yeah.
Did Melisande not just make a really high pitched noise or something?
She just went like, yeah, she did like a high pitched like bleating squeal song is what she did.
So some owls come, and I'm pretty sure the owls just give him an acorn. You right?
No, that's antiquity. That's later.
What do the owls do?
I don't know. The owls they turn up with some scrolls, and they're like something to do with the plot.
I thought the owls brought the acorn. I don't know.
No, he has a chat to antiquity. He has a chat to antiquity, who's a tree.
No, but that's no. This is right. No, I know this film. So the owls come, right, and the owls give him an acorn.
No. Antiquity gives him the acorn.
Into the water.
Yeah, but antiquity, the tree gives him the acorn.
I thought he dropped the acorn into the water, and then the tree came. Oh no, you're right.
Yeah.
So where does he find the tree?
I don't know.
Okay, so like maybe the owls take him to a tree.
Oh my god. Sorry, okay, Dave, tell us what happened.
So there's some things, I don't remember what the owls are about.
Maybe the owls take him to the tree, because you're right, he talks to the tree, and the tree is antiquity. And whenever the tree gets angry, it gets a bit bigger and shakes its leaves at him.
Yeah.
Really violently.
Yeah. It's kind of like that way where Obi-Wan says, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. But then he's mostly just wanders around as a ghost, not really doing very much.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that. It's a bit
That's the tree version.
Yeah, ghost leaves. Ooh.
And then so you're right. So he chats to Antiquity, and Antiquity's supposed to tell him what man he wants. And he's like, you should have Peter Dickinson. Of course you should.
Because he's the descendant of the first guy who tamed the dragons.
And taught him how to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's also a man of science.
He's a man of science. Right. So
gives him the acorn and says, drop this in the something pools of time.
And this is why
it's like the Jelland pools of time or something. It was a word I didn't know.
It wasn't, I didn't watch, that was in the subtitles at the last bit, so I can't tell you what the word was.
The pools of time, so he drops it in the pools.
Except there was that whole fight, the unnecessary scene as well, where you're like, this film could have been edited much, much shorter, where Gorbash is like, are you sure it's the pool? I don't think you know the pool. And you're just like, he's a wizard. He's like, I would know a pool of blah, blah, blah if I'd seen it.
Yes.
So yeah, that goes on for long that needs to, and then he drops it in, and then you've got that like little seed of doubt you can tell in Coriolanus, because he's not sure that he has dropped the acorn in the right place, because it's not happened immediately, is it?
Uh-oh.
But anyway, then we go into the pool and go to
present day Boston.
Present day, where Peter Dickinson has a board game.
I keep thinking about Bruce Dickinson whenever we say Peter Dickinson, lead singer of Iron Maiden.
Yes, I know.
Which would be a different
film.
Different film, but we can approach them in, because we're doing this anniversary edition next year.
Yes.
And that might be involved.
Flight of Dragons, anything dragon related, is like ripe territory for Iron Maiden to get involved in the soundtrack as well.
All right, I'll have our people call their people.
Please do.
If you can have metal in my Flight of Dragons, I'll be really happy. I'll be really, really happy.
Flight of Dragons.
Yeah. Oh, can we actually have Don McLean, Iron Maiden mashup?
Oh my god, is Don McLean still alive?
I was going to ask. I don't know.
McLaren Maiden.
Because that would.
He is an American singer-songwriter.
Yes.
We do know that, but when is he alive?
He is, not was.
He is.
Yay!
He is, not
Okay.
was.
I'll yeah. How about
Why in his start thing, if you go to his Wikipedia in the first paragraph, Sophie, it does not tell you about Flight of Dragons, and I feel that they've missed a trick here, because I mean, obviously that is what he is known for. So this whole American Pie shenanigans, Flight of Dragons.
Bye bye, Miss American Flight of Dragons.
Flight of Dragons. So anyway, we've gone properly into this pool that Antiquity sent us to, and we've now arrived in present day in a pawn shop, where Peter Dickinson is playing a board game with dragons and wizards that look identical to the people we've already seen.
Not just not even identical. Like they are the characters. It's like they are the characters. How did this happen? Like, why does he know all these people and their names and their faces?
And so he's trying to get money from pawning things so that he can get a startup essentially to get his board game off the ground. And he's playing it with the pawn shop person he's clearly pals with. But he also makes reference to a book that he's writing. He's also writing a book called The Flight of Dragons. So he's clearly really, really invested in this. And he's very excited.
The word the sentence "flight of dragons" comes up in this movie is obnoxious.
An inordinate amount of times.
So he's really passionate about it. He's really excitable. He seems like a lovely man. He does not seem like a kind of guy that can take on Omadon, but certainly
doesn't he? No.
Omadon being James Earl Jones. I don't think we've referred to him as Omadon.
Yeah. I think Karen has, but I think I have.
I keep trying to get his name in there because it's the one name that I knew apart from Coriolanus. So Coriolanus is looking at all this and is actually like, oh, it's quite exciting. He's got all of his there. He's chatting to Gorbash, and then it's like, right, time for me to go down. So in order to meet Peter Dickinson, he just embodies the game piece of himself on the board, and then yells to Peter Dickinson to come on down, and then it's off its tits for a little bit because Peter Dickinson joins them, and each of them sits on one of the dice of the board game, and then they go flying through the air.
Just like in real life, Karen. I don't know what you mean.
I really enjoy that during all this man of science did not really question any of this. I just like to think he was just really high. I don't know, but he's just like, sure, this was happening, and then they find themselves flying.
He was unemployed, trying to get like startup money to manufacture his like weird dragon board game. Like 100%, he was huffing something.
And like the bit I really enjoy is where they're flying through the air. I say falling through the air, I guess, and they have been for quite some time. And Peter Dickinson's taking it in his stride, going, we've been doing this for a long time. Are we almost there? And you're like, you're falling through the air. Like
why aren't you screaming and confused?
But then he gets really excited because then dragons come and get them.
Gorbash turns up.
Gorbash and his pal, who's what is his name? Oh, it's going to really bother me because I love him. No, you need to find his name because I love him.
It's not here.
Let me find it. Yeah, so the older dragon.
I feel like Gorbash and Old Dragon are like perfect.
Old Dragon, but the Old Dragon's my favorite. I love him so much. But yeah, apparently he's not big enough a deal to even have reference.
Are you kidding? No, I don't want to believe that.
Smurgle. So
that's right. That's why I was like, oh yeah, we just keep stealing the strange names from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's right. So Smurgle's my favorite. Smurgle's the old kind of grumpy.
Is that because of how few vowels he has in his name?
Yes.
SMRGOL.
I like to think it's kind of like it's Welsh.
It could be Welsh.
Welsh dragon. That's what I'm going with.
That's I'm a quarter Welsh, guys. I feel bad now that I've been culturally insensitive to my brethren.
So again, Peter Dickinson's like they end up on the dragon to get brought down, and he's just so excited because he's done so much research into dragons, and now it's like there is a dragon. This is amazing. I'm so happy. Life dream complete. And then when they land as well, he gets not only are there dragons, he gets to meet Melisande, who he immediately falls in love with. That's what happens.
He wants to put it in her so bad from like the get-go.
Which is like, you know, a plot point and a predictable one, but not nearly as creepy as Sir Aaron Neville Smythe, who meets her when she's 5 and falls madly in love with her.
As someone who, by Margot, was required to read the Twilight books and then watch the movies because we were comparing them to, what's the sex books? 50 Shades of Grey.
Shades.
That whole Twilight imprinting on a small child, your love of your life partner, whatever, like it's just like it's been done recently and people do not blink an eye in a way that everyone should be blinking all their eyes constantly whenever this happens.
It's weird.
Blink all your eyes. It's not okay to meet a child and go like, well, I hope we fall in love in the appropriate number of you'll be over age time. Like that's, you don't know. No.
It's a bit creepy. It's a bit weird.
So yeah, so anyway, so like
I'm a fan of Peter in this respect because at least
Peter like and ultimately he gets a bit shy, but he's already had like his clothes have been fire burnt because Gorbash gets overexcited and doesn't turn his head.
Also, like he's, you know, his job is being unemployed in like manufacturing board games. Like he's going to be a shy guy, you know. He's
So then he gets put in a tunic more fitting for Sir Peter.
The best bit though was when they put him in his costume for the first time. His tights looked too skin colored, so I thought he wasn't wearing any pants. And then
I feel like I think that's what I always thought.
But then at the end, like for some reason his skin color tights look more like skin color tights. But in the very beginning, I was like, I thought that was the joke when they put him in like a top but no pants, and I was like, oh, that's a bit. Oh no, he's wearing pants, but we just haven't picked the right pigment of our.
So yeah, so Melisande gets introduced to Sir Peter because he can't just be Peter Dickinson, he's Sir Peter, and she's very happy to see him. And it turns out she's called on Sir Thingy Smythe, and he's going to be arriving by dawn tomorrow because, of course, everything happens at dawn, right? Like that's what happens.
Nobody has a timepiece.
When we draw pistols, it's when we go on our quest to save magic. It's a pretty important time, I think. Yeah.
So they try and have basically Peter and Coriolanus have a chat about what's expected on the quest, and he gets given like the shield and the flute, which are important, that other wizards gave. So the shield that can protect them from spells, and the flute that can put things to sleep, dragons.
Dave, you're ruining it.
What? That's what all of that information is given to us when these things happen.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. And like for some reason though, when we get to the point where we need to use it, takes like a real fucking long time for us to remember these gifts. But
You're absolutely right.
But in the meantime, so they're all getting set for the quest. They're getting excited about it, and they even decide to have a drink to the quest. They're going to have some cider. This is when science first comes to its fore. Real excitement of science, because it turns out Coriolanus doesn't want the cider because it upsets his already stressed and painful system.
Causes bad magic on his insides.
Yeah, bad magic.
These were the quotes. Every time something like this happened, I was like, write it down, and then I was like, I don't have enough paper for this movie.
So then Peter said that he had an old, I don't know, colleague, academic, whatever, who used to suffer terribly from stomach ulcers, and the only thing that would help him was milk. So he turns his cider into milk,
and that's better.
Magic, science, magic.
I'm generally on board with the message of this film, right? But that's not science. That's just an anecdote.
Yeah, exactly. But saying that, the other thing that we do learn about Peter though is that Peter Dickinson was a scientist. He was in academia. He clearly got sick of writing grants and papers and whatnot, and he went, sod this, I'm too distracted, I want to write about dragons, that's all I want to do, and he stops doing science.
Uh-oh.
Are you Peter Dickinson?
Uh-oh.
Are you Peter Dickinson?
I find him very hard to relate to.
Like start making like weird board games. Uh-oh.
This is why I want you to see this too, so because I mean I love dragons and a lot of it comes from this film.
Like as I said, I'm on board. Like it is the most batshit crazy thing I've ever seen. But I love this constant messaging of like science versus magic. They can be together, they can't. It's just like, but yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's like have some milk, it will fix your ulcers. It's science. My favorite science bit, which like is going to come up later, is with the acid snake worm.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite science, I think, in this.
It was strong science.
Except for like science saving the day in the end, which we'll also get to.
So yeah, so we have this, we're toasting, we're ready to go, and we're excited, we're just waiting for the night to arrive. But in the background, James Earl Jones, Omadon, is a bit like, oh, this dude's supposed to defeat me, but antiquity says, so clearly something on, but he's kind of laughing at it, looking through his like crystal ball at what's going on, going, And so he sends his scary dragon, and he's like, go and get him, go and deal with this, because actually this quest won't happen if Peter's done with. So dragon comes in, scary dragon, grabs Peter, takes him away, and so then there's a bit of a kerfuffle because Gorbash wants to fly after him, but Caroline is saying you're not fast enough. But in having this debate, it's like, well, if you could have just let Gorbash go, maybe this would have helped. Anyway, Gorbash goes, but Caroline is just trying to do this spell, this relocation spell to move him. But of course, it turns out that Coriolanus is just off his game, totally off his game. So problem is, bad dragon drops Peter. Peter is going to get crushed to his death. Bad dragon has a very good laugh. Like bad dragon is as entertaining as James Earl Jones, like voice wise at times, and he's just like, I've crushed him. That's it. So meanwhile, Gorbash is flying, trying to catch him, and then suddenly Peter disappears. Gorbash is on the ground, looking really tired. They take him into his pile of gold because, as we all know, dragons sleep in gold. Now, the reason dragons sleep in gold is because they set fire to any of your bedclothes.
Like they're just like, they're sleeping, they've got like a little bit of like fire snoring, they set fire to everything around them. They just soft, not flammable material to sleep on.
I struggled to understand how they did, however, manage to stay in a wooden structure. But that aside, they do. But
given the time, I'm surprised they didn't go with asbestos.
Yes.
The scientifically superior.
Science. So dragons sleep on gold. That's why they have hoards of gold, because it's a soft metal and it's comfortable for them. So they collect all their gold, they sleep in that. So we've got Smeargle as uncle, who's, later learn it's not his uncle, but in this, no one's really related to each other. The brothers are not brothers, uncles are not uncles, dads are not dads, they're all just pals. Anyway, then
so he wakes up and it emerges that Peter and Gorbash are now the same person.
And we've seen this movie. It's called Freaky Friday. It's also called Big. There's many movies where a person is now in a person, but this time it's a person in a dragon. But the dragon
is hilarious consequence.
Gorbash is still in there, but like Peter's just like residing in there as well somehow too.
Yeah. So Gorbash doesn't know we sleep in his own brain. Yeah. So Peter's now in control of a dragon, but
he doesn't know how to be a dragon. Karen, he doesn't know how to be a dragon. What are we gonna do?
James Earl Jones is like, lol.
He doesn't know how to be a dragon.
So obviously, cue the knight who just wants a cup of tea. Where's my tea?
He wants a cup of tea and underage girls.
So the quest is a little sidetracked at the start because essentially, Smeargle, so they have to have 3 for a quest, and that's the problem because now 2 of their 3 are 1. So Smeargle, as old as he is, old dragon, has to go with them because they need to have 3, but also because Smeargle has to teach Peter how to actually be a dragon.
Exactly.
And then this cues to the bit that you quite enjoyed with this film when you first saw it.
Quite enjoyed this bit where he explains that they have to eat this limestone in order.
And the gems. So they're
to
harassing the little trolls that have the gems.
I think they're gnomes.
Oh, the gnomes, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I think they're gnomes. They might be trolls. I'm not sure.
That's
I think they're gnomes.
And that is racist. And I expect.
No. So they have to eat the gems and the limestone. So the gems crush up the limestone, and then, according to Smeargle, that makes a fire. But Peter reasons that maybe the calcium in the limestone is interacting with the the stomach acid, and that's producing hydrogen, which is making them lighter than air.
Science. Just like
Science.
that dragons can fly because of science. No, this is like every time we hit one of these explanations, like Karen, I was filled with like joy. I was like, this is fucking mental. And I love it. I was like, that's it. It's like, we've got it. We've got like science explaining magic. Yes.
And it's reasonably, like, I don't know if you could produce enough hydrogen to be heavier than the limestone. Like, I don't know if, or like the mass, like, I don't know how aerodynamically feasible this is, but I like how internally, I like that it kind of makes sort of sense.
Do you know
Yeah,
what I
it's like
liked about
a
it as
try,
a kid?
for
Because
sure.
Yeah.
it made me, because you know, like the whole fire and air, and I don't know, I just like to think of dragons as big hot air balloons.
They really are.
Yeah.
They're blimps. They're giant blimps is what these, although that's.
And they've got, and what I love as well is their thimble. I don't know,
Yeah,
like
so
their
that's how
thimble,
they go
their
up.
mouth thimble.
They're
The
lighter than
thimble
air.
that makes electricity?
Yeah. They kind of gloss over that point where the electricity comes from. But yeah, so they go up because they're lighter than air because they make the hydrogen. And then they ignite the hydrogen and breathe it out in order to go down. And that's how dragons work.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, but like that sounds logical.
I love it. I
Yeah.
loved it so much.
Explain the thimble. But no, you're right. I was like, because of the thing where it's like, and then this thing, and it's like, and Peter's like, oh, electricity. Like, it's
It's great. And I mean, Smeargle's so resistant to it, but he's like, yeah, whatever. If Peter could just fly.
whatever, Peter. You explain it with your science. I'm quite busy explaining how to be a dragon to you, so shush.
So then they fly back to the very, very English knight who's sitting on his own, talking to his horse, feeling very lonely, because it's very lonely quests because the dragons are being dragons.
They're practicing being dragons, yeah.
And then they fly back to him. Peter does quite well flying. Smeargle has a wee rest. Peter can't fly anymore because he's used up all of his fire for the day or something. So I don't know, something about getting there.
Yeah, something keeps happening where you use up all of your hydrogen with like too much fire or like dragoning. Like they seem to have like a finite amount.
You've got exactly, but if you rest, it'll come back. So that's when Peter, as a dragon, has a chat to the knight, which is the creepy thing about how.
Is that when he face plants and he says something like bad show old chat? It's like the opposite of like good, and it's just ridiculous, and I loved it. It was just like he'd been flying, he ran out of stuff, like he crash landed as a dragon, and then like you've got the English knight who would normally say something like good show old chat, but they have him saying like bad show old chat or something ridiculous, and Karen, I couldn't.
Yeah. And basically at that point he says that he really would have had a duel with Peter because he's upset that he's in love with Melisande, because Melisande and Peter had a little bit of a kiss. And the knight had thought Melisande was his. But then he felt conflicted because also
they must duel, yeah.
Gorbash, it turned out the reason Gorbash as a dragon was alive is because of the knight, because he saved the baby Gorbash as an egg from being eaten by the bad wizard.
Bad
dragon.
Yeah.
And then gifted this baby dragon to Melisande when she was 5, and then in meeting her when she was 5 knew that he was going to marry her.
Yes, this is like Twilight imprinting. It's just this thing, but like I've met this 5-year-old. Do you know what I don't like the most is that he gets like very, like when he's like talking about this, he's like obviously like he's going to marry her, and then like specifies like when she's of age. And I was like, just because you've said that explicitly and directly doesn't make me feel better about this situation.
No, it's like I'm racist, but I'm not racist, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not okay to sleep with a child when she's underage, but when she's of age, even though I loved her from that second that she was underage for that many years, it's fine because she will be of age and we'll be together. And that's when I was like, yeah, I was a big fan of Peter. I'm like, you know what? They're of a similar age. She didn't meet him when she was an infant, and he didn't.
Yeah.
On her. No, it was a bit gross.
I hope a distractingly red-headed woods person comes out of the woodwork and fixes this situation for everyone.
Luckily, it does.
Luckily.
And then we go back to Coriolanus. Coriolanus has been trying to follow them, watching his crystal ball, but his magic isn't good enough. I don't know if there's a little bit about James L. Jones obscuring things too, but Melisande, it turns out, can see what's happening. Cue Karen Lamb, Scary 3.
Bless you.
Thanks.
Scary point 3.
Yeah.
These are the scariest baddies for me in this film, apart from James Earl Jones.
Oh, the twittering.
The twittering turns out weird, ratty type creatures.
Yeah.
All you can see is the eyes.
Is
Squealing
that because they don't advance the story in any way whatsoever? They're just an inconvenience that takes up time.
Well, they're one of the various things that they encounter on their way to stop them on their quest.
Because James Earl Jones did that.
Yeah, it's one of the things he did. It's one of the baddies on the way. There are 3 different baddies.
Dave, I know what you mean.
I thought
But James Earl Jones did it.
There's a lot of stuff in here. So we have these things that Twitter that make you.
They're meant to be near the coast, but they're
not.
They're not near the coast, and they look. You're right. They look like these like overgrown like rat things.
Yeah. So granted, this lot did need a lot more explanation than any of the others.
So it's not even that. It's like we have the explanation of what these things are, and that they're not where they're supposed to be, but they're here even though they're not supposed to be there. And then we have Ara, the wolf thing, who comes in to save them, but not only does he have to come in and save them, and that's fine, but like we have to get his whole backstory about how he should be dead, but now he's not dead, and he drowned, and then he made a deal with someone, and it just takes a long time to explain what's going on. And I feel like this was maybe some world building that we could have.
But look, I thought they were, of the things, they were the scariest for me. I was scared.
Like, before you even saw them, right? Because it's like you get this sound, and the sound is like a bit like aggressive, and then you see like eyeballs in the glowy eyeballs in the distance, and then when you actually see them, like all of the, I agree with you. Like I think for a child like that would be quite confronting. Dave, I also understand the point that you're making, but like James Earl Jones got to throw some. I feel like the wolf thing is it's like. I guess there was no other way for them to get out of it. So they needed someone else to come in and like sort their shit out. And they were just like, I don't know why it had to be dead. And then,
that was all. Ultimately, the other thing was, although the quest was to start with 3, Coriolanus was hoping more things would come along as they went along, because otherwise there was no hope if it was just 3. They had to have more things. Also, think about Little Karen Lamb. Little Karen Lamb loves dragons. Little Karen Lamb loves probably more than dragons, dogs and wolvie type things. So you've now taken my dragony world and you've given me a dog in it.
Yeah, big old Savior wolf pal. Yeah.
And then also this whole scene. So the other thing I think, you're talking about the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Lord of the stuff.
Well, you feel that you're safe because you're not far out the Shire, but yet still some shit can be thrown at you, even though you're quite far from the scary stuff. They still feel that they're quite far from the black magic, and yet scary stuff comes at them.
Oh, I agree, and I think that's fine and important, but like they could have turned up, and Ara could have turned up to save them, and they would be like, Ara, thank God you're here, you saved us. And he could have been like, yup. But like, instead of like, yup, let me tell you all about me.
But there was an in-world explanation, because the thing was, any living creature would be driven mad by the sound of these things, including Melisande, who's watching it from
we needed something dead. So Karen's right, we needed something dead.
Wolf was dead and was only brought, he was a ghost wolf that killed it and was brought back to life. So dead things are not, it's convoluted, but it makes sense. It makes sense in world. It makes sense in world.
But he's also the only one.
Karen is right. It needed to be dead.
He could also just be the only, that just doesn't work on his species.
Yeah, and also there's the kind of thing, I'm with you in some way though, because I love that Smigel just sleeps through it all. So it's supposed to drive every living creature insane, unless you're already fast asleep.
Unless you're already like an old dragon.
Maybe he's really hard of hearing.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we've now got a wolf who's joined the gang.
A wolf who's now alive because he defeated the bad things.
And I love him. I love that wolf. That wolf, anytime he says anything, even if it's not really funny and it's a little bit scary, he laughs. That wolf laughs at all points.
He's just a jolly wolf, What are you gonna do?
And also, he's called which goes right in the basket with brah.
Just all the sound names.
The brah screaming stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so what happens next?
Now they're in the woods and they get attacked by some little sword wielding things. And
Are
the
they
archer comes out
dwarves
of
or
the woodwork.
gnomes, Dave? Are they dwarves or gnomes?
I don't know if they're
Or
dwarves or
people?
gnomes or neither.
I think they're just little people.
The tiny little.
They're
yeah,
elves. They're fucking elves.
Elves.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
But then they're saved by this woods person who's got
Danielle.
Danielle.
Danielle, the woods person. I love Danielle. I remember being a small child because I never really liked Melisande because she was. I mean, but saying that, Melisande can like see the future and not see the future, see what's happening somewhere else at the same time.
No, she's
But,
beige as a character. I'll give you that.
But Danielle, like, here she comes.
Yeah, she got balls of steel. Also, I do like that those the small people, they like went full blown attack as a like, we thought you were the bad dragon.
Yeah, and what we forgot to mention was that other than Smeagol and Gorbash, all of the dragons have been convinced to come along to the side of James Earl Jones because you know he's bewitched them or something. I don't know, but anyway, so they hadn't realized they were good dragons. And also I love as well, even though the wolf was back alive, a whole pile of rocks were dropped on that wolf.
That's
alive. Nothing, no one died. And then the knight is all a bit flustered because he's kind of given it all good chap. Well done. Thank you very much to this
he thought he was a pretty boy and he turned out to be a pretty woman.
Oh yeah, take the hat off and then the long red hair comes flowing down. So Danielle, pretty much the night is over Melisande from that point onwards because he wants
to put it in Danielle from this stage.
Pretty much. So now they continue on their way. They take one of the elves, the leader of the elves, with them. So now we've got like this proper gang.
The elf who looks like a tiny hobbit. Like, guys, can we just focus on the fact that I think there was some intellectual property thievery? It looks like a hobbit. It is a hobbit. Okay.
A little bit.
It is, but it's important because it's going to stereotypically be able to play the flute at some point.
Right? Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm out.
So now we are heading to stay somewhere for the night.
So we're now at the border between like whatever the good place is and like James Earl Jones land.
This is like there's like Dark Red Palace of Doom.
Dark Red Palace of Doom, and there's an inn, and they stay at the inn, and everybody gets a bit.
Rings. Sorry, I sneezed.
So everybody gets a little bit loose. They're all having a drink.
Oh yeah, the dragons get hammered.
I love how hammered the dragons get, and I love how they get to sing "Come from Alabama" with a banjo on my knee again because Smeagol
this one I love because I was like, of all the songs you're going to have the drunk dragon singing. I mean, that's a song that drunk people sing, but it doesn't really seem to fit in here. And why do they know it? But sure.
Yeah,
love it.
I'm pretty sure it's just so that we can get extra invested in Smeagol for some reason.
I love Smeagol. I love Smeagol.
Well, because of what's going to happen soon. Yeah. So they get hammered. Also, Danielle and Sir Oren get hammered. And it's kind of heavily implied that they sleep together because she's like, oh, might be our last night on Earth together. Oh, maybe it's time for a quick
I dare you to put it in me.
Yeah, basically.
And then there's 4 baddies also in the inn because the innkeeper takes all business because he's in the middle ground between.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's just like, look, I'm just. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the knight gets really annoyed. They clearly run off to like tell James Earl Jones that that they're there.
And then an ogre comes and steals all the people, but not the dragons.
No dragons.
So the dragons need to go to where the ogre is and kill the ogre.
But Smeagol is too old and can't really do it. But so he gives Peter some heads up on like the fact that ogres, you can't breathe fire on them because it won't work. You can't like penetrate their skin. If you get near them, they'll squeeze you.
Yeah.
My one thing though was, Sophie, watching this again as an adult, I'm like, he has a wooden leg. Set fire to his wooden leg. Then he only has one leg, he'll fall down. That's why I was like, me as dragon watching that.
Really, they seem like top heavy, those things. You burn one leg out and it's 100%.
So anyway,
Peter
tries
fucks it
really.
up.
Peter Gorbash Dragon tries really hard, but does a really bad job.
Blows it. He gets knocked around and is like in his head is saying, these are the things I must do. And he does all the opposite things.
And then he's like kind of being held in a death grip, and Smurgle has to come in and save the day because Smurgle's like, oh, for God's sake, why didn't I just do this anyway?
But sadly does this at the cost of his own life, which is possibly why they gave us all that extra investment in him.
You're welcome.
I was really sad.
Yeah.
I was really sad.
Yeah, I was a bit, I feel like I probably don't have the same emotional attachment to these dragons or characters that you do, Karen. But I was like, it's a shame that he had to die. He seemed like a good one, and I feel like that was Peter's fault for just like
still bit of a stakes raiser.
Yeah,
bit of a stakes raiser for the old
can
quest.
Die in this.
Yeah, bit of a stakes raiser. It's
yeah.
basically Game of Thrones.
Basically, yeah, we've moved from Lord of the Rings is done. We're in Game of Thrones now.
So we've rescued everybody because we've killed the thing, right? Yeah. So now we're back on our way. We're firmly in James Earl Jones land. Is this where we encounter the snake?
Yeah, we don't. It's a worm. It's a
massive worm.
Sorry, I misspoke. I said snake, but I meant worm. It's the acid worm.
The acid worm.
This was when I was scared. So the ogre scared me a little bit, but the worm, the grotesque face.
Foreboding presence for sure.
Oh.
And you can't just like chop something up because then it's got a bunch of, you can't segment this dude because each of the pieces will become just as bad as the others.
Although I kind of feel like I wish they tried that and then it got explained, because like you did say, it does get killed a little bit more easily than you'd think.
Yeah, it's really straightforward.
Because they discuss why it can't get killed before they try some of these things. I probably would have liked, again, it is a children's film, but I would have liked them to actually, the knight accidentally hacked a few bits up, or someone actually did step in the acid and got burnt a bit, but it's more like, don't go there. I reckon, so Peter recognizes the smell from his days in the lab. We still don't know what he did when he was a scientist, but he was in the lab.
He was a scientist with acid, but acid that is not this powerful. You see?
Yeah, that's right. That's what he says. And then he very quickly works out that he's got the solution to this problem and breathes fire in the snake's mouth, so it explodes.
Because then I was like, is that when he's going to tell me that fire is the best antidote for acid? I was like, I want you to say it, Peter, because that's not true.
So I thought this was nonsense, right? I thought it was nonsense as well. But then I was reading about sulfuric acid because do you remember the thing from chemistry about you always add acid to the water rather than water to the acid?
Oh, probably. I haven't done chemistry
and
since.
It's because the hydration, I've got the wiki up, the hydration reaction of sulfuric acid is highly exothermic. So you always add the acid to the water rather than the water to the acid. And if he's burning hydrogen, he's going to be producing water. So the dissolving of the water, the reaction between the water and the sulfuric acid, if it's strong enough, will be quite exothermic. So it might actually be borderline explosive.
So why didn't he tell me that?
I don't know, but probably because they didn't think about it as hard as I just have. I think I've probably retconned it for them.
Also, possibly because it was a children's film, they'd already given us a lot of big words by that point. But
I mean, there are bigger words to come, but you're right.
All we needed to know, though, was again that the scientist who'd already, fixed the wizard with milk, and then had kind of failed us when he was trying to be a dragon and be more magic. But when he had to bring his own game back into it, he could be helpful.
Yeah. No,
so James Earl Jones is having a terrible time because he's lost the beasties that chatter, the ogre is gone, and now his big worm is gone. So what to do now? Well, you send Flight of Dragons. Of course you do. All the bad dragons.
The Flight of Dragons.
Flight of Dragons. All the bad dragons now.
Oh no! Wait, don't we? Yep. Okay.
Oh, I forgot about the hopelessness. But that, my God,
the shield and the hopelessness, right? Because our first weapon that we have, it takes a while to remember to use it. Yeah.
Yeah. The depression. I forgot about the depression.
Also, I feel like there's a lot of. Do you remember that time that we watched The Wizard of Oz last week? And then there was a reference, The Wizard of Oz said out loud, because as you said, Peter wrote his story, the Flight of Dragons, but he hadn't finished it. But then what's this? I want to call him
Coriolanus.
Coriolanus, not Coloapus. Coriolanus has this library of unfinished books, and he mentions The Wizard of Oz, and then there's the bit where they're all fucking getting sleepy in the poppy field in this movie. There's also a fucking floating house. There's a lot of Wizard of Oz, just a timing suspicious, Karen.
So yeah, so I
thought
forgot
it was
about
just Karen because it's Karen's fault because it was her.
I know, yeah. What are you doing, Karen?
Karen making this movie that has all these
Hey,
rip-offs of Dave's
Wizard of Oz
movies.
did not have dragons in it, and it was all the poorer for it, is all I can say.
Okay.
So yeah, so before he sends in the flight dragons, he actually tries to deal with it himself by sending in depression as a means of attacking the group. So he goes in with his big hand of depression, and they all feel hopeless, and they all just lie down and they're sad. But Peter, it's not affecting
People are
him.
always really confused because they're expecting me to say if I'm a bit down that I've got the black dog visiting, and I'm always like, oh, I've got the hand of Omadon. They always look at me a bit weird, and I've never really understood why that is, but maybe it's just because this film's not as widely known as that saying.
That's a t-shirt if I've heard one.
The hand of Omadon is visiting.
Oh, I'm gonna say that now.
Go on.
So this is
Making us all t-shirts. Sorry, keep going.
So this is when Peter is visited and reminded that he has the shield, and he can use the shield to penetrate magic or defend against magic. So it's like, do this.
Yeah. That's
do this before this starts to affect you. Because I don't know why Peter wasn't feeling hopeless at that point. Maybe he was just a more positive, or maybe it was because he was a dragon. I don't know.
I think he's a bit thick, I think.
Yeah. So he holds up the shield. Everyone's coming back, and we're like, oh, great. So now this one, the flight dragons sent in, and as you mentioned, this is when we're
really quickly, Karen. I do really enjoy when Peter uses the shield, and then James Earl Jones gets real confused as to why light is coming out of the thing that he's looking at. It's like, what is this? He was not expecting that shield. Like that threw him. But then you're right, he comes through with the flight of dragons.
Even though you would have thought maybe he would know his brothers had this kind of thing, but
this is what I'm thinking. Like all of these things that we're saying, because the flight of dragons come in. What are we going to do with all these fucking dragons? Give a hobbit a flute so they fall asleep. And again, just like, why didn't James Earl Jones know that his brother had a flute that hobbits could play to make dragons go to sleep? Why didn't he know that?
I feel like that's absolutely what happened. Like, it's like, oh, we need to put the dragons to sleep with the flute. I hope someone knows how to play the flute. All eyes go to the elf. Every single pair of eyes goes to the elf. Like, obviously, this guy is the...
You're a tiny man, you love music.
He plays it beautifully.
Plays it beautifully.
He does. No, you're right, Karen. He fucking nails it.
And in a way that blends beautifully with the ongoing score.
Yeah. But unfortunately, while all the dragons go to sleep, well, that also means that
all the dragons
go to sleep, which means Peter / Gorbash goes to sleep. But unfortunately,
have we learned the etymology of Gorbash's name yet? Did we just?
Oh my god, we did earlier on.
We did, yeah.
Oh my god, we've skipped over that, Sophie, because it's not something I'm proud of in this film. But it made me laugh when it happened again.
It's like my favorite thing ever. This is ridiculous. No, I can't say it.
Something to do with gore and bashing.
Bashing. There was a lot of gore, and I definitely got bashed. So I called him
Gorbash.
Because I'm the most literal man in the world.
And give me my cup of tea.
And to be honest, though, like
child when she's of age.
If he hadn't said that, like Gorbash is just a name, and I feel like with that explanation, you've ruined it. I didn't need to know where it came from. I didn't know.
We don't get explained Smurgle or R or Giles the Elf.
Yeah, exactly. Shit. Anyway.
So unfortunately, although Peter Dragon is asleep, it turns out. I was going to say Oberon, but that's not right. Omadon. Omadon's dragon is too powerful and too closely tied to Omadon.
That's right.
So it can't get put to sleep. And as we've established, he's a bit of a brutal dragon. So it just kills everyone.
Yeah, kills everyone.
Kills everyone.
Like everybody left, yeah. So sorry, who's our redheaded beauty? Sorry.
Danielle.
Yeah, what's his name?
He kills Giles, R, and Danielle.
He kills everyone.
What a prick.
I forgot that he kills the dragon but dies from his wounds.
Yeah, so Englishman kills the dragon but dies from his wounds.
Yeah.
But then Omadon comes down because he's like, oh, my dragon's dead, but look, I think we've won. This is
I
great.
killed everyone. I'm here to gloat on the battlefield. You're welcome. Yeah.
But this is when we cue science, and this is when science is necessary once again. And I love how Peter separates himself from Gorbash.
So he realizes that two things cannot be in the same place at the same time.
Which
Scientific
is
principle.
true, but that's not what it means.
Yeah.
So good though.
So
it's so good.
And it was
So
like
he's
the
not-
second he thought of that. That's what he says. Like the second I thought of that, I was no longer like part of Gorbash. It was just like, why didn't you think of that earlier, mate? You're the scientist.
mate.
But yeah.
So
Because he
yeah.
just appears. It's like you've got the passed out dragon who's sleeping, and then all of a sudden there's like a little blue glow, and then there's just a man sitting.
But
on
do you know
his-
what I liked? See, when he was being scientist, he was back in his like science
And-
outfit, so blazer, and he put his glasses back on.
Did he?
He certainly put his glasses on. So yeah, because you know when like
I thought that's when he had his skin color tights that I realized were tights.
no, that's I think that's
Where when he
his
appears,
girlfriend.
he's got his skin color tights that look like tights when he appears, because that's when I realized they were tights.
He does have his glasses because I was
No,
like,
that's true. I think
science
he has
man
his
puts his glasses back on, so he puts on his
Yeah.
glasses,
But I
says
think he's-
that he's still
I think
there.
he's wearing his like period get up though, I think.
Okay, but just with glasses because science.
So
Yeah.
like James Earl Jones starts incanting some shit.
Okay, so again, cue me being scared. How many times? My fifth now? Because James Earl Jones' character, Omadon, is grotesque.
His voice itself, even the man, even if he was even
Yeah.
hearing, I love you, but the second it starts speaking, I just start crying and I run away. Like it's got that voice.
Yeah.
So
He
he
starts
gets bigger
exploding.
and bigger and bigger. His back gets bigger, and suddenly he's become one with his dragon, essentially.
Yeah, and all these dragon heads kind of spew out of his body,
It's
and
the
it's real
Medusa of
gross.
the dragon world.
Yeah. And he's incanting these things. And so old mate Peter starts doing some incantations of his own.
Tells him lots of formulas and junk.
Various bits of optics and I particularly like the bit about he says, so Omadon says something to the effect of I can pluck the sun out of the sky with my magic. And he's like, no, you can't, because that's not where the sun is. That's where the sun was 8.5 minutes ago, because the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second, jackass.
It's like we start with Pythagoras' theorem and it's just like a descent into like science.
I didn't realize it, but Pythagoras' theorem appearing in last week's film, The Wizard of Oz, and this week's film.
Okay, damn. Well, okay, yeah, that's like, I feel like these are very weirdly linked. Maybe that's why you guys are together. Oh my god.
It
Oh
is
my god. this
Wizard
is
of Oz
wild.
and Flight Dragons. That's
But yeah, and this is this thing where he's like, and they're mainly physical laws that he's
Yeah.
just like quoting, but he just goes like, but it's the bit where we go from like, you're right, like, facts about the speed of light, like this, and then it's when he gets to just listing scientific.
But do you know why? I mean, in world explanation though, so he's already, so as Omadon is walking towards him, he's doing this, he's clearly like starting to destroy the dragon heads and whatnot.
He's winning.
But that's when Omadon on his hands and his face starts saying wizards and warlocks and demons. So he starts it by starting to recite all of these evil magic
Lions and tigers
words.
and
Yeah,
bears.
lions and
Yeah.
tigers and bears.
Yeah.
And so in response,
Yeah,
like
he's
Peter
just
stops
saying
giving
science.
us
No, you're right.
theorems.
There's a reason that he's just saying the science names. That's true. And he just like, I love it. And I was like, what's he going to say next? Geology. And I was like, what is he going to say next? And it was just like, he's got some good sciences in there.
My favorite bit though at the end of all that, as I said today, was like the last one is sociology. And as he says sociology, that's when James Earl goes, nah! And I was like, yep.
That's what all the scientists think too.
Oh, Sophie, I love it so much. I love the end of that film.
I was
so
just like,
much.
I was like, I knew we were watching a cartoon about dragons. Obviously, like you're gonna have something's gonna happen. We're gonna think there's gonna be a build up. There's gonna be a crescendo. There's gonna be a climax. Blah blah. But I was like, I love this like science thread throughout. Like I didn't know it was at all about magic versus science, Karen. And I loved it. And it just got so fucking ridiculous. But I loved it.
And I think as well, so I mean, so the very end, what we discover is in Peter doing this, he's kind of sacrificed his links to the magic kingdom. And
He
the
has
dragons,
to
if they love, 'cause
say,
he has to say he
yeah.
denies magic.
Magic
In order
is
to defeat
real.
the evil wizard, he has to deny magic. And so when Melisande wakes up again, she's like,
Because
Peter?"
like quickly, so when he basically he says all the science, he denies magic, everything comes alive again. It's like,
Yes.
okay, we've got our knight back, we've got lady red hair, we've got every we're fine again.
And also they're in their bubble, so they're in their retirement home as they'd always wanted to be. So and
But, Peter's not there.
Coriolanus is very happy, and Gorbash is back to being Gorbash again, and it's like,
dumb
when are we going on the
fucking
quest?
voice. Oh.
Yeah, that voice.
Fucking voice, man.
But yeah, so Melisande learns that, you know, Peter got sent back, and chooses herself to follow him. So we then end the film with Peter back to playing Flight of Dragons with that pawn shop dude.
Yeah.
And then, but this time he's got the backing, he's got the money because he's got a shield. He's pawning the shield so that they can make his game. And then Melisande comes in behind him, blazered up. Now she's in science mode, world mode, and she tries to sell the crown of Umadon. Yeah. And now Peter and what's her face?
Melisande have a wee kiss, and that's in the film.
Which obviously for me did not care a jot about. That was not part of this for me. My whole joy was the fact that Peter was a dragon. Felt it was really sad that he couldn't be a dragon anymore. Loved that they were all the dragons, dragons and wolves.
And then everyone was like friends in the end, and they survived, right? So that was, except for, you know, obviously like James Earl Jones and his cunt dragon. And
I did like that magic and science did coexist. It did. It's just the scientists can't know about it.
again, like Harry Potter. So they stole that. So this plagiarized Lord of the Rings, but Harry Potter plagiarized this. I'm calling it.
Because I'm sure lots of people have seen this.
I bet J.K. Rowling has. She seems like...
Who wouldn't have seen this?
I would. It's like, she's a transphobe, and I bet she was a thief.
So it was straight to video, believe it or not, Sophie.
No. This was not...
Straight to video.
Okay, idea. When you come to visit, we can rent out Golden Age cinema and bar. It's going to cost us like a couple $100, but we can have the whole cinema and we can like play whatever we want, I think. It's just an idea. It's the one where we're going to do your premiere, Dave, if we can't.
Oh yeah, if there's no actual premiere.
So I'm just suggesting maybe like Flight of Dragons.
I think it's great. And like, so I'll let you both say what you think of it too. But like ultimately for me, great voice acting, all the dragons.
Except for Gorbash's dumb voice.
Clearly,
like, the voice acting was fine, but his voice was too dumb.
That's why he's not really in it for very long. And also inspired me to write a book about wizards.
Can we please track down this book? I've never wanted anything more in my life than to read this Child Karen book about dragons.
I have a strong suspicion there may be some plagiarism of Flight of Dragons in there somewhere.
Look, it happens. It happens, Karen.
I'm pretty sure my dragon might be called Gorbash. Or maybe Gorbash, maybe I put the E in there. But there are definitely dragons and wizards. But my wizard is called Ladrican, and my wizard does not look like Coriolanus. So, but look, I just think it was a very good film for my vocabulary, among other things.
It was just like, I think that's what it was. Like the reason why I kept going, like, what the fuck is happening? It's like for a kids movie, there were lots of like, I'm going to call them like highbrow surprises, like shit that you just don't expect to see in a kids movie. I love the constant reference to science. I was not expecting any of this. Like granted, I felt like there were maybe like a few flaws in the plot from time to time. There seemed to be like a little bit of plagiarism from things, but I thought like I genuinely, like when that movie was over, I was just like, what a delight. That's how I felt at the end of that.
90 minutes, Sophie. Well, 92 minutes. But yeah, within my perfect time.
According to the one that I got, about 56. That's not true.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I really obviously approve of the message of the film, the messaging of the film, the pro-science message of the film. Probably you could shave 20 minutes out of it and not miss it, even though
I think that might be true. Yeah.
Please don't get rid of the chattery demons though, because they scare me.
I think you don't need to get rid of them. I just think the whole sequence could be expedited a little bit. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, like it does, like that one takes
Can we do a fan edit?
It's their fan edit, Flight of Dragons.
I can't believe that they're finally making the live action one next year. If that's not a thing that happens, like I'm done with this world. What does that?
Well, as I say, apparently they were going to in 2015, and then they canned it for some reason. I just wonder if there's not enough of us fans out there. We need to talk about it more.
We need to talk about it more. They just don't know that we love it.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of our 3 scary things from childhood. So Helen was the whole reason we did this, because she doesn't like horror, and she's picking next week's one. And what are we watching, Sophie?
We are watching The Exorcist. Now, very quickly, so as Karen has said, the reason we picked the childhood horrors is because, as we maybe established in the Halloween episode, my mother is not super good at horror. She doesn't often watch horror if she can avoid it. She finds it quite scary. She's the perfect audience member. She will react to everything. So when we were talking about what we were going to do for Halloween and JP picked his thing, Mum was like, oh, I would pick something like, and I believe she mentioned the Addams Family or like the Munsters. And so we went, that's a cute idea. Let's do this kind of childhood horror. And then we all picked our things. And I got a message from Mum saying, so like, would The Exorcist be okay? And I was like, well, one, we already watched it for Horror Club, but like at the very, in fact, I think it was our first episode, but it was when we weren't recording it. So like, that's not necessarily a problem from a logistic point of view, but I was like, I think you missed the brief.
Yes.
And
I thought we were rewatching the Addams Family.
Right, and so the problem that we hit is that the mum cannot remember being scared by anything as a child. So either she was a very resilient child or she didn't watch anything. And her first memory of being scared by something is watching The Exorcist at the age of, she thinks, 16 or 17, which does technically legally fit the child brief. So she was a child, and she did get scared. And so we will be watching The Exorcist, which, although not in theme, technically is in theme. So we've gone from Mr. Boogedy, The Wizard of Oz, The Flight of Dragons to The fucking Exorcist. That will be our episode next week. I believe Helen and Jean-Pierre will both be joining us, unless I'm not correct. Dad will be fine with it.
Yeah, I think JP is going to be dealing with a lot watching it with your mum. But anyway, that's next week.
I don't know the last time she watched it. And just this thought that I don't know if she'll cope, but she picked it. So that's it. And that's what we're doing next week.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.